Tattoo Critique, episode 8. Let's go. Our first piece is from Jonathan. Jonathan said, "This is my first tattoo I did of myself on the top of my thigh. I have watched plenty of videos. My lady bought me a tattoo machine for Christmas and wanted your opinion, please." So let's take a quick look at Jonathan's piece. Now, as you can see, Jonathan did a pretty decent job, especially considering it was first tattoo. I zoomed in, you can take a look at some of the lines. Some are pretty smooth, some you could tell have kind of been gone over a few times to make them look a little bit better. But overall, really not that bad for your first go, your first time on skin, and you use the top of your leg. I think this is decent. I think that as your skill develops, you can go back and put some really nice shading in here, really pop things out. So as a whole, first tattoo on your leg, I'm sure you learned a lot. Yes, there are areas to improve, but I don't think you got to worry about that right now. I think you just need to continue to work on those lines and packing in black. I wouldn't really worry about too much right now. Stay there, run those lines, get comfortable, pack some black. Don't get overwhelmed by everything else. But I think you're off to a great start. So thanks for sending that in, Jonathan. Our next piece is from Chris. "Hey man, I really love your videos. You've taught me a lot and inspired me to keep moving forward." If we take a look at Chris's, we've definitely seen this tattoo before. And if you take a look from a distance, it's not too bad. But the problem here is you're fighting a few things. First off, the hand is not the greatest place to be practicing tattooing because it's a bit tougher. It gets a lot more wear. It's exposed to a lot more things. Healing is way harder. And then you add the spot you put it in. Again, you're just making it even worse on yourself because it has a hard time healing. Now, if we add in the fact that the black is really not packed in there, it looks like it's packed in when you're tattooing it. You think, oh, it's filled in. But it's really not. When it heals, you will definitely see that it's not packed in there. It's going to fade. As a whole, it's a little off. Again, I think that's because you're tattooing a hand with little experience. So try tattooing different places. Practice maybe on yourself if you can. So nonetheless, keep working at this, but let other people see this and know that if your black looks like this when you think you've packed it in, it's not packed in there. This is light. If you're doing work like this and you're thinking that that black is saturated and it looks like this, it's not saturated. It's not going to be black when it heals. Our next piece is from Hannah. Hannah's been learning to tattoo independently for 3 to 4 months. She says, "I am attaching 2 different pictures. The three-eyed woman is the first I did on myself, and after learning more about techniques and different needles, I practiced more on fake skin before doing my raccoon, which is a second picture. I eventually really want to master more traditional style tattoos once I get the basics down." Well, Hannah, let's take a look at that three-eyed lady. Now, as you can see here, it's not too bad. And what I mean by not too bad is that it doesn't look bad. Even though the color is missing in some spots, it's patchy, the line work is maybe not 100% there. The great part is it's healed, so we get to see exactly how it looked healed. I think some of the issues here are just confidence with that machine. You're using a thicker liner, maybe even a round shader. So it's getting comfortable with that machine, getting comfortable the first time feeling those needles break skin. When it came to packing color, it appears that maybe you didn't quite get that needle far enough in there. Maybe you were a little bit nervous and you were tattooing a little bit light, meaning you were tattooing that top layer that eventually kind of fell away. So nonetheless, I do see some really nice things here for a first tattoo. Definitely trying a lot of different things, colors, line, filling in black. If you look at the black down at the bottom, it's kind of patchy as well. But when we jump to this raccoon here, you see quite a bit of a difference. The lines are a little bit better. The black is packed in better. There's not so many openings in there. It just looks like a more well-rounded piece. Now, of course, I think the issue comes in here mainly would be with the red in the handkerchief there. It's not quite saturated all the way. It's a little bit patchy here and there. And it can be hard packing a full area red because as you get going, the skin gets red, you're tattooing red. If there's blood coming through, it's also red. So you really get this feeling that you have filled in more area than you have. And then when it heals, it ends up a little bit light. But I don't think it's the end of the world. I see improvement here. So keep at it, and thank you for sending that in. Our next piece is from Brock. Brock says, "I've been tattooing for 3 months, gained a lot of knowledge from your videos. Please be brutally honest. Thank you so much." All right, Brock, I'm going to start with the one that I personally like the most of what you sent, and that would be this one right here. while yes, there are some issues with it, and there are, again, that black's not totally packed in everywhere, but I relate to this piece because this is similar to the first piece I ever did on skin as well, my own skin. And as a whole, I think it looks pretty decent. Now, I would definitely say you might want to go back in there, maybe pack some more black when it heals, smooth out the lines as it goes, but you have a decent product here that can be worked with. Now, when we jump to this piece, my biggest struggle here is that it's so big and open. You put this giant piece on your leg and took up a lot of real estate. That's a lot of area that has been taken up by this one tattoo that is really just a giant circle with some black eyes and a tiny mouth. I don't know if there's more to this or not, but I will say that it's taking up a lot of space. Now here, I think the black might be packed a little bit better in some areas than in the other piece. The line around the outside, while it's big and you had to keep, make a little bit, keep going around, it's not bad considering it took many passes, I'm sure, to get all the way around that. But that being said, why do that to yourself? Why put yourself in that position when you're learning to make this giant circle and these really straight lines? Try on the smaller scale, build up some confidence and work your way up to that. So you want to take up less space, less real estate that you have, and have it a little bit easier on yourself. So then that brings us to this piece right here, where I think you tried to do a little bit more than you needed to. I think you're still working on your lines and you're working on packing black, so I would try to stick with those things. Here you gave yourself, again, a really long line and another really long line to try to contend with when we're still trying to figure things out. We're still trying to get the proper depth, voltage, and get that hand to move steady. We can tell by looking at these lines. And the reason I say don't worry so much about these big long lines, because if you look into the skull itself, there's some decent line work in there. It's not that bad. But again, slow down, maybe work on a bit of a smaller scale, and I think you'll really start to see some more improvement. But again, I thank you for sending that in. Our next piece is from Ricky. Ricky says, "Hi Dave, what you think? Can you give me feedback? Please. Looking to get into tattooing long term. I've been practicing for 2 months. Thank you, Ricky." So real quick, I want to take a look at this piece right here, which is clearly a sword going into the chest. But the problem is, I'm not really sure what's happening here. It's missing a border, whether that be a line around the outside or a background to pop the piece out. It looks like you kind of just put little shading spots where it was maybe in the picture you were looking at, but it doesn't quite translate, especially if you really just look at it or get anywhere close to it. It does not translate. Try not to bite off more than you could chew at once. I would definitely focus on lining before I get into all the shading, because you're going to want to fall back on some sort of lining fundamentals. So if you don't have them now, it's going to be kind of tricky moving forward. And I think that comes through a little bit more here in this piece. As you can see, it's the lines are a little rough, everything's a little off, the shading is not quite there. The biggest struggle we have here again is we're tattooing a hand. We're putting this on a hand in a place where healing is difficult at a time when we are not quite ready to do that. And again, I'll reiterate, the line work is where you need to be at. Don't worry about all the extra stuff. You might have a skill level that says you can do this, but in tattooing, the level is here and you need to learn that fundamental before moving on, or at least get a little bit more comfortable with it before moving on. So that brings us to our last piece, which is still on the hand. Now, I don't know if that is red behind that, clover or what, but those lines are beat up. They are put in too heavily. They have scarred a bit. Same with the yin-yang there. A little bit less, but definitely there. Again, take a step back. Don't tattoo people's hands. Try not to tattoo parts of their body that are going to be exposed for other people to see all the time, because you're going to make mistakes. You don't want to use that area that is right there on the hand. Save that for once you have a bit more experience and the fundamentals are down a little bit more. But nonetheless, thank you for sending these in, and I hope that this helps you out. Our last piece is from Graphics. So Graphics says, "This Glock piece is the reason I started tattooing, because the feds raided my house and I was facing years in federal prison for possession of a machine gun, because this small part by itself they consider a machine gun. I figured if I went to prison knowing how to tattoo, I could make money in there without being a burden on my family. Luckily, I got probation. Congratulations. I decided I had to tattoo it on myself." So let's take a look at Graphics' piece. Now, Graphics used, again, he said, a number 10 10 3-round liner and even a number 8 3-round liner, which is a very, very small diameter needle. With all that being said, I think you did pretty decent considering the size of this tattoo. It's about the size of your thumb, telling by the photo. You can literally cover it up. So we're working in an area this big. So those tiny needles were a smart decision because you clearly needed them to do the job. Now, there are some spots here that looks like a little bit blown out, but that's kind of almost understandable when you're using such a small needle and learning to use such a small needle. It's kind of like if you have a balloon and you take a stick, it's going to take a lot of pressure to pop that balloon. But if you take a tiny little needle, it's just ding, and the thing is popped. So when it comes to lining with really small needles, it doesn't take much pressure. Those needles are piercing that skin and you don't even really feel it happening. There's no pushback, there's not a lot of give or what have you. So again, it can be really tricky using these really tiny needles. But I think you did a pretty good job. Again, I can see what those lines, like I said, maybe that one at the top's a little bit blown out, but you know what? Not bad at all. And I think the story behind this is really cool, in my opinion, because you got probation, and now you get to wear the little piece that started this whole craziness and got you into tattooing. I hope you still enjoy it, graphics, and I hope you just keep going at it, keep moving forward. Nonetheless, I appreciate you sending that in, brother. If you want to send your work in, the only place you can send your work in that will be on this series is artmesomething@gmail.com. That's artmesomething@gmail.com. Guys, if you enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, ring the bell to get notification when I post. Until next time, peace.